Hi everyone, in this video we are going to discuss about how to find the slope of a line which is passing through two given points. So in this example I have taken 2 points, point A and B, which are on this line. The line name is L and the coordinates of both A and B have been provided. So the coordinates of A are x sub 1, y sub 1 and coordinates of B are x sub 2, y sub 2. Now we have to find the slope of this straight line. Now the first thing is, what is slope even? Well, slope is defined as the amount of rise per unit run. So essentially it is rise divided by run. Now if you're thinking, hey, what is rise and what is run? Well, if you think about like a staircase or any inclined surface, right? You know that you are trying to move horizontally. However, at the same time, you also have to move vertically because the plane, the surface is not horizontal. It's an inclined surface. So for certain amount of horizontal distance, you are also having certain amount of vertical distance covered, right? So that is called the rise. Rise is like the amount of distance that you are climbing vertically, and the run is the amount of distance that you are moving horizontally. So for between these 2 points, if I draw a quick little triangle like this, so let me first draw the triangle. So here I have drawn a small little triangle where the side AC is actually parallel to the x-axis and side CB or BC, that is parallel to the y-axis. So that means AC and CB, they are perpendicular to each other, right? So this is a right triangle, this is a right angle triangle. And if you think about the points or the line segment AB, that is actually the hypotenuse of this right triangle, right? So now what is the rise? Well, rise is your vertical displacement. That means it's the distance BC, that is the rise. And what is the run? Well, run is actually the distance AC, which is the horizontal distance or horizontal displacement. So suppose a person goes from point A to point B, that means that person's rise would be the BC distance and run would be the AC distance, right? And then if you think about this, so what is the value of rise in this particular example? If we use the coordinates that have been provided, so we can write it as, so the rise will be y sub 2 minus y sub 1. Why? Because you see the y coordinate of B is y sub 2 and the y coordinate of C will coincide with the y coordinate of A, which is y sub 1. So the distance BC will be equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So this will be equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So that is the rise. When you go from point A to point B, that is the amount of rise, how much you are moving vertically, right? And similarly, what would be the amount of run? Well, in this case the run will be the distance between A and C, so that will be the difference in the x coordinate of the points C and A. The x coordinate of C would coincide with the x coordinate of B, which is x sub 2, and then x coordinate of A is actually x sub 1. So this distance would be x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So this is exactly what the slope is for this straight line. So the slope of this straight line is exactly y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now this can also be denoted in another form. So now let's talk about the angle of inclination. Now if you look at this angle right here, I am indicating with a yellow arc right here, and let's call it maybe theta. So if our angle is theta degree or theta radian, whatever. So if this angle is theta, this will be called the angle of inclination. So theta is the angle of inclination. It is the angle between the straight line and the positive x-axis. Please make a note. Always remember that the angle of inclination is the angle between the straight line and the positive x-axis, not the negative x-axis. The angle between the straight line and the positive x-axis, that is called the angle of inclination. So in this case, if theta is our angle of inclination, then you see this little angle right here, the angle which we can call it like angle BAC, that angle will also be alpha. This BAC will also be alpha angle, because between the two parallel lines which are AC and the x-axis, if our straight line is the transversal, then you see they are the corresponding angles. So that angle inside the triangle, that angle BAC will also be theta. This angle will also be theta. I am going to write it right here. So that angle is also theta. Now if you look at this, for this right angle triangle where the right angle is at angle C, that is the right angle. So for this right angle triangle, the rise divided by run, that will actually be equal to tangent of theta. So this is actually equal to tangent of theta. So we can say tan theta. So this is actually tangent of theta. Now what is theta? Theta is the angle of inclination. So let me make a quick note here. Alright, so theta is the angle of inclination, and then the slope will be equal to the value of tangent of theta, and we can also indicate that as m. Generally the slope is indicated by lowercase m. So here let me make a quick summary here. So the slope, which is equal to m, so we can say slope is equal to, it is denoted by m, and that will be equal to tangent of theta, and in this particular example it will be y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. I hope now you have a clear idea of what slope means, and then how to find out the slope of a straight line. If the coordinates of 2 points on the straight line have been provided, we should be able to calculate the slope of that straight line. Using this formula, the slope will be y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And also if the angle of inclination is provided, then also you can easily calculate the slope, which will be tangent of that angle, tangent of theta. If the angle of inclination is equal to theta degree, then the slope will be tangent of that angle, tangent of theta. Also, we can calculate the angle of inclination from the slope. So if we are provided with the coordinates of the 2 points on the straight line, and then we are able to calculate the slope, so we can say, okay, now if we assume that the angle of inclination is theta degree, then clearly we can say that tangent of theta is equal to this slope value, which is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So from here we can say, okay, then what will be the value of theta? Well, it will be tan inverse, meaning tangent inverse of this slope value, which is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So that way also we can find out the angle of inclination. So you could be provided with the coordinates of the points a and b, and then you could be asked to calculate the slope as well as to calculate the angle of inclination. So if you have to calculate the slope, we know it will be y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And what would be the angle of inclination? Well, it will be tangent inverse of this slope. So here again, if I write it like this, we could even say that this will be tangent inverse of m, which is our slope. Essentially this is actually tangent inverse of the slope, and whatever degree or radian that comes out to be, you can calculate that in your calculator. That way we can calculate the angle of inclination also after calculating the slope. Let's take an example and see how to calculate the slope and the angle of inclination. So we are going to take an example. Suppose we have been provided the 2 points on a straight line. Say suppose the coordinates of point A, the first point, its coordinate is suppose 2, 3, and then the other point, which is point B, suppose its coordinates have been provided as, let's say, 5, 6. And we have been asked to find out the slope of this line and the angle of inclination of this line. So let's solve it. Now we know slope is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1, which is equal to, in this case, let's substitute the values. You know what is y sub 2? Well, here is x sub 1, so I'm writing right here on top of these actual values. So this is x sub 1 and y sub 1, and similarly this is x sub 2 and y sub 2, right? So what is our y sub 2? Well, y sub 2 is 6, and then minus what is y sub 1, that is 3, and divided by what is x sub 2, that is 5, minus x sub 1 is 2. So that will be 3 divided by 3, that will be equal to 1. So our slope is actually 1. So we can say that m, or slope, so therefore slope is equal to 1. Right? So that's our answer to the first question. And then what would be the angle of inclination? Well, angle of inclination would be tangent inverse of this value. So tan inverse of this value. So our angle of inclination, or we can say theta, which is the angle of inclination, will be tangent inverse of 1, the slope value, whatever is the value of slope that we have calculated, and that will be equal to 45 degree, which is, you can say, even pi by 4 if you want to denote in radian. So that will be pi by 4 radian or 45 degree, right? Whatever way you want to answer it. So our angle of inclination for this example is actually 45 degree. I hope everything made sense so far. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.